You know what? There's a fine line between a really good documentary and just your everyday, regular schmegular Wikipedia page of facts. 4 parts for regular schmegular. Hi you guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Tyra here with another struggle review, here to discuss the Janet Jackson documentary. Now this documentary is available on Lifetime and the other 2 parts are already posted. But right now we're going to discuss part 3 and 4. You know, the last parts where you're just feeling like the story is about to really pick up and we're going to really go out with the bang on everything. Janet, yeah, those parts. Before I get into how I felt closing out this documentary, I need you guys to drop down and subscribe to my channel and like this video. I'm going to give you guys a moment to do that, and then we're going to come back and discuss all things part 3. You don't know how I was really like ready to get to part 3 because I was like, I know things are about to be picking up. You guys have hopefully subscribed to see more of me. Let's get into part 3. Before we jump into that, I got something to say to the people in the back. The people who feel like y'all just want her to get messy. You want it like it's not always about all the tea and getting messy. We love those things, of course, because the little bit of mess that we did get here, those are the things that popped off. Those are the things that are trending, being posted, tweeted. Oh, no, you didn't, Jermaine. Those are the things. But it's not always about that. I feel like any good documentary, especially about somebody as massive as Janet Jackson, the idea is to walk away feeling closer to the artist, feeling a little bit more informed, a little bit more intuitive about the type of person that this is. We know nothing about her besides her accolades, her ability to perform, her beauty, you know, the basic structures. We don't want the things that we can Google. We want the things that come from here that we can't Google. We want to see you. I saw me see. We want to see you, Janet. Did we see Janet here? We saw her. She wasn't here though. Now, getting into the documentary, we're leaving off of part 2, and it's pretty much about how her career was affected with the allegations against Michael. We don't pick up right away from there. We pick up with Janet blowing up. We're all over the world. She's blowing up. She's touring. She's getting her name out there. She's really becoming massive. So big that everybody's enjoying her music, trying to, you know, replicate the Janet look. She has all these fans. She's getting a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. She's big. She's even switched record labels. She's making big moves for herself. But we don't really spend a lot of time in any area of this documentary. Now, at the very beginning, with us just really getting to know her, I feel like the beginning of the documentary was the best, especially part 1. But I felt like we would get more into Janet once we got more into her career and her distancing herself from Joe, and we're just focusing on her. But we really didn't hear. We skipped around so much from the very beginning. So we jumped from, you know, her switching record labels to people being dissatisfied because now she wants to venture off and do movies like Poetic Justice. Now we get like a lot of celebrities in part 3 and 4 giving their opinions on certain things that just really don't add up too much. It was just like kind of like, why are you here? But it was as if the documentary was starting to really just solely rely on that footage to keep us going, because that's all we had. But it just didn't. It's like, okay, we get to see you guys interacting behind the scenes with Poetic Justice, you know, running lines, and you have, you know, Regina King like I'm gonna share something with you guys. Oh yeah, there was some chemistry on the set, even though her boyfriend was right there. Her and Tupac had chemistry. Like, okay, yeah, what you're dropping, what you're putting down, I'm really not picking up. I really don't care. Now, of course, since we're focusing on poetic justice, we have to get into the soundtrack. I heard from a friend today, and she said you were in town. Get into it again. That is when I was like, oh, so we're really skipping around here. I really expected the doc to focus on her music a whole lot more. I was like, wow, we're really not gonna talk about that. Once we get into, you know, her writing more and how much input she has on her songs, like, why can't we get some of that? I want to know where she was, how she was feeling when she, you know, I wanted some anytime, any place. I get so lonely. All like escapades, like where's the music? Where is the music? Where was the music in this doc? But you know what? We didn't focus on any of her writing abilities. No, you know, I was here, I was feeling this, or this is how it was, you know, when I was creating this video, or this vibe. Janet is such a fucking vibe. Where is that? But we choose to focus on the Again video, and that's when I set up, because I was like, okay, here we go. Now we're getting into something Janet Jackson. One of her characteristics, she serves up the sex honey, and that still goes hand in hand with those videos. The If video, the I Know You Want This, like all the pictures, all the abs, the nice smile, the boobs. Let's go. She invented the sex appeal, honey. Give it to us, Janet. Nothing. We literally have people surrounding her, people who may have been there giving their little input, which I really didn't care for, because I was like, well, damn, are they on a gag order? Is there only so much that they can say? Because it's just like, well, yeah, she called me, and then she was sexy, and oh, it was so uncomfortable to see her lap dance dudes on stage and stuff like that. And then you just have her just feeling like, you know, I just needed to do that for me, and I'm not used to that from my family. We don't do that. But, you know, like, it was cool or whatever. Like, girl, elaborate. And then they want to play on our emotions with the Renee shit. I was so over the husband situation and them tiptoeing around so much with him and how much he was enforcing and implementing in her career. Either it was really warranted and, oh, it was so good. They were such a good team. Everything was nice. He helped her along. He believed in her. He, you know, beefed up the sex. He did this. He did this. Like, he was so helpful on one hand. And then on the other hand, it's like some misogyny, controlling, like she could make her own decisions, her image, and some weirdo type stuff. Like, it just felt like there was so much more that needed to be said, and she did not say it. Like, I love the fact that they were, you know, such a good team, and he was helping her with the videos, helping her with the choreography, but it just felt like it was something that everyone wasn't saying about his character, and she didn't bother to say it either. And it's just like, well, damn, why even bring it up? If you don't want to really dive in to discuss those parts of your life, because I feel like that relationship was an uncomfortable situation for her and it was more going on, but she doesn't want to share that. Fine, let's talk about the other parts of you. You know, let's talk about your religion, your ability to be so diverse in stages of your career. You've looked like a completely different one. Girl, we can talk about your hair. We can talk about it's so many layers to Janet that we didn't go through here, but we spent a large amount of time in part 3 on her relationship with Renee and them being happy and minor ups and downs and him kind of being the enforcer. Oh, dude, I don't know who the guy was in the documentary with the long gray hair. I don't know if he was a director. He was a really good friend of her. It surely did seem like he was trying to say something without saying something, like, oh yeah, that Renee, it's just got to be too much with the control. Nobody should have that much control over your life. But then at the same time, it's like, oh, he was so nice and everything. Well, which is it? If you're not gonna tell us, let's talk about something else. Now we end off on the sex appeal with the infamous 2 hands on the boob situation, that photograph, and it's just like not much said at all. There is kind of a vibe with the people, like, you know, where were you when the infamous cover dropped? And of course you have her family like, oh my god, like, it's just, you know, it's a little taboo. But you also have kind of this undertone of Renee being behind everything, kind of being the enforcer, like, okay, well, do this. Yeah, you should do those lap dances. Yeah, you should play up that sex appeal. Oh, wouldn't this like be more revealing? but it didn't always feel like it was just her choice to do this. It felt like a force behind her, pushing her. I don't know. Something was really off within their relationship and how she chose to speak on him and how others in the documentary chose to speak on him at times. It's just something that someone isn't saying, and we're never going to know about it because she didn't want to share that. And I don't want you to share that anyway. I wanted to know what kind of food you eat. Like, I wanted the basics. Now, eventually, after we spent moments, because that's all there were moments, no elaboration whatsoever. It's like, yeah, that happened. We're going down this Wikipedia page of check-offs, and yeah, that happened. We do get to the Michael Jackson allegation and how that affected her career. And child, when we got to it, I almost fell asleep. We have things like really going well for her at this point. She is everywhere. She is great. She is touring. Everybody loves Janet. Now, when the allegation happens, she has a deal with Coca-Cola. If I had to hear Janet say, we had a deal with Coca-Cola. There's a deal with Coke on the table. Did I say I had a deal with Coca-Cola? Girl, we heard you. And then what? Like, you have this deal being ripped from under her. And you have her comparing that moment to the situation with Michael and his Pepsi deal. And it's just like we were making massive moves. I was about to be I was about to have a Pepsi and a Coke deal. That is major for any artist. And it was snatched away from me. And it's like, they called me up and they said, no, thank you. And it's like, okay. Then that was like it. I was like, wow. I did appreciate her instilling in that moment that like we didn't just turn away or like, okay, no, Michael, those are your problems. We tried to be there for him as much as possible. We tried to support him. We never, bashed his name in the media or, we weren't there for that. We were solely there to protect our brother and just reassure him that we know and love him and that he would never do that. We know that that's not in him. Cool. How did it affect your career? It was so tight-lipped about everything. Like, I think she felt like for her to share certain things, it would be her bashing the brother or bashing her father. That's not what we wanted you to do. But just to be honest with your feelings or just what was going on in your mind with yourself at that time, it just wasn't enough. Now, in that moment, we only have Janet say pretty much it's guilty by association, but we don't really know how it affected her. We get no insider, like deep feeling, like thoughtful moments with Janet. It's just all check, 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 check. So it's just like, my brother wouldn't do that. He paid them off to go away. It looked guilty by association. All we can do is support him and move forward. That's about it. Everything here is very cut and dry. So in supporting him, we get into some old footage, which we are going to love, of them putting together Scream. It was so adorable. I love that moment in the documentary. The lovable, I love that moment. In the documentary, they were few, far, and in between. But I really did enjoy her, coming and supporting him and pushing him with those lyrics, them putting the song together. I wanted more of that, Janet. And it didn't just have to be, old footage that we needed to see. No, I would have loved to see how she put more songs together, concept for her videos, the choreography. We didn't even talk about that. Like, that's what we want to know about, girl. But let me take a moment on a good moment. I really love the moment of them putting that song together and Michael, it was so cute. Or, Michael going in the booth and you seen that was really a moment where they both just had a whole lot to say about what was going on, how they were being treated in the tabloids, how they felt like their families were attacked. And then that moment gets snatched real quick because you have, I guess, the producer, like, oh, well, what about the Scream video? Making that had to be amazing, right? No, it was one of, the worst experiences of my life. Like, girl, elaborate. You can't just lay this stuff out, elaborate. But she elaborates in a way that only Janet can, and it's just like we get into the people keeping their camp separate and the people keeping Michael away from his family because the people didn't want them to be together. Girl, who are the people? Who are the people? Like, She literally sat in the camera and said, I just don't think that you should ever be able to let anyone tell you that you can't be by your family. We weren't raised like that. I shot days, he shot nights. We couldn't be anywhere near each other. Like, until that infamous dance moment, it just seemed like they didn't never get to see each other. That camps were literally working together to keep them apart. What kind of shit is that? Like, those are some things that we would like to know more about. I wouldn't have known either way. Like, if she didn't put those things out there, I wouldn't have known. I was like, okay, well, but you put it out there, Janet. So if you're, elaborate. You laid a whole deck of cards out and didn't shuffle them once. It was just like, yeah, they were trying to keep us apart. That hurt me that they did that and my brother allowed it. Who is they? Who? Now, with all of that going on and Janet just being stressed, we have what we feel like is going to be a big moment. She's just like, I was just so overwhelmed and I just couldn't take it anymore. Stuff was getting hard out here in these streets. Oh, I left for 2 weeks with my friends and went to Hawaii. You're like, girl, so what? Girl, so what? Like, every moment here that was supposed to be a moment just was not. Like, Janet, we want to get to know you, girl. Why did you bring us here to be quiet? Like, I would have much rather just got to know her as an entertainer and her just keep the personal stuff at bay. Because when it came down to it in part 3, the personal stuff was all Renee. And I didn't come here to get to know Renee, especially if you're not going to elaborate on his character. You have everybody in Hawaii just, oh my God, he was just getting on everybody's nerves. It was just a bit much. He always had a camera in everybody. Why? Why do we have multiple shots of Renee with a camera in someone's face saying, oh my God, nobody's gonna ever see this. Nobody, do it again. Do, like, what was his obsession? What's going on with that? Like, that was present like way before the Hawaii vacation. But we do take that moment to acknowledge that he had an addiction to prescription pills, I believe. We just gloss over that. We don't get into anything that Janet had to endure due to this person being an addict. We don't elaborate on any of those things. We just put it out there, and it's just like, yeah, he had an addiction. I couldn't deal with it. We weren't doing it anymore, and I got a divorce. That's it. We don't bother to spend any time on his addiction, how she really felt about him trying to control her image, pressuring her to look a certain way. We even have a moment of her saying Michael used to call her a pig and other terms that hurt her feelings, but she always puts a band-aid on everything as soon as she says something like, well, he didn't mean it. He didn't. It was, fun and games. It was brotherly love, or they did it out of love. It's like, we don't want you to, tear down anybody. We don't want you to do that. We want how you personally felt, because it almost felt like some body dysmorphia type stuff. Like I was, insecure. I was bound when I was on, on Good Times. My chest was bound. Yeah, elaborate. Just we don't need to know your whole life story. We're just trying to get to know you, Janet. So when you put stuff out there like you dealing with weight issues, you're an emotional eater, stuff that people can really relate to, that's not the time to skip and just gloss over things and just jump to, oh yeah, and then we got divorced and he wanted some money and he felt like he was entitled to this, and then we just leave off with people saying, well, she's always been very secretive, very quiet, and even though, we have people trying to drag her through the mud, take things from her, treat her a certain way, she's never complained once or said anything about it. Yeah, this is the time, because we know that you have a view and an emotion about those things. If we don't want to share those things, let's just stick to the basics. Girl, who does your hair? But I still have not given up on this documentary. Cool, we got all the Renee out the way. We are still in the 90s, right? Let's get into Janet in the 90s. Janet in the 90s was everything. Let's get into the looks, honey. What do you like to do on your time away? What are your favorite, hobbies? Like, what do you read? What's your skin regime, girl? All the choreography routines. What were you doing and thinking and when you did this? What about this video? What about this change? What about when you had the piercing? What about the vision for the video? Like, something. How are you feeling when these things happen? How are you feeling When don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone? How are you feeling when you just said, you know what, we finna be real black, I ain't wearing no makeup in this video? How did you, create so much diversity and change up your sound throughout your career? Like, girl, let's get into that. We just left all those 90s and it's all for you if you really want it. It was 2000s and all the girls at the party, look at that. But we just left and it was like, boom. And part 3, she's dating Jermaine and she's happier than she's ever been. And you have her saying stuff like, well, Jermaine was a catch. He wasn't an addict. Like, wow. The fact that she thinks that he was a catch because, like, well, at least he's not an addict this time. Or you have moments in the documentary of her saying, she's looking for love. She hasn't given up on love. She still really wants love. There's such a sense of loneliness about Janet. I want to get into that. No, we just left off on his all for you. Let's get into part 4.